I look up the word wrestling. In Hebrew, it's called palay. It's a P-A-L-E, palay. It has a general meaning is fighting, struggling, or conflict or contest. Something that you're struggling, something that you have to fight is called wrestling. So the question that I want to ask all of you in the beginning is there anything right now that you are wrestling or you're struggling for? I'm sure there is a few. Some of us are not convinced to raise our hand, but let's say there is some. In September last year, most of you attended my 30th anniversary, and then this year I'm going to be married for about 31 years. It's a very long time. And my next anniversary, if I'm going to have any anniversary at all, and hopefully that I'm still alive, it's going to be 50th anniversary, which is about 20 years from now. And hopefully by then, somebody instead of me will organize it. Just a hint. The second thing, this is, the reason I said if I'm still alive is this. I'm joking at home that I have 15 years left to live. So make sure that my wife is treating me well, and hopefully some of you treating me well as well, because maybe 15 years I'll be gone with the Lord and go to the heaven, right? So anyway, so go back is struggling. Is anything that you're struggling right now, anything that you're wrestling right now? So I remember, related to my personal story is when I married 30 years ago, the first couple years is horrible, extremely horrible. My wife and I, we argue, we fight minimally 3 times a week. Suffering and on a regular basis. It can be compared as someone who has gone to the war zone every single week. And at that time, I was still working in the church board. I wasn't a pastor yet. I was in a deacons for the church. So I was kind of embarrassed and afraid to tell anyone. I was embarrassed simply because a couple who we believe in God, and we quarrel, we fight. It doesn't seem like it being a Christian-like, right? Because people believe in God are always being taught about peace and peaceful life. But when couple like us, we fought, we quarrels every single week. This is before my children was born. There was no peace, but only like living in a war zone, living in a battlefield. So do people believe in God has peace, living in a peaceful life, or people who believe in God are no different than anybody else? Whether they believe in God or not, they still in kind of discontent because they cannot live in peace and always live in a battlefield. In other words, are we constantly wrestling about something, some idea that are different from our own ideas? This happened not only in a family, as I mentioned, but it's also in the society, and sometimes even in the church family. It seems it's like a war zone. It's a battle. And if there is a battle, if there is a war going on, then there's no peace, simply no peace. In order to have peace, we must fight, we must wrestle. And peace is also referred to not a peace about the world, about 2 countries fighting each other like Russian and Ukraine right now, but peace are also referred to the personal peace in our family, in our life. So again, are you and I, are we living in a peace right now, in a peaceful life right now? If we don't completely feel like there is a peace in our life, because probably we are still struggling. We are wrestling with with an ongoing battle. And if there is a battle, like I said, there's no peace. And if you want peace, you must fight and win. For a person to be willing to go to war, to fight, to bring in the peace into the peace country or peace life, that person must accept 2 things. Number 1 is, I'm struggling. I'm in a battle zone. I'm facing some challenges. And number two is if in order for a person to go into accept the battle and fight is they need to fight the battle to win it, to bring in the peace. If you don't fight, you're not going to win. So two things, you must accept that you are struggling. You may be in the battle. And number two, and you accept and you're willing to wrestle, you're willing to fight to win the battle, to bring in the peace. So let's go into 2 points right now. So number 1 point is, I need to wrestle. I need to face my struggle. Do you realize that living right now, do you realize that you are living in a battle right now? Maybe you're not. The reason you not realize that you're in a battle right now, struggling right now, because simply, ever since you were born, I was born, you was born, we are born into this world, and this struggling is a battle. And therefore, we usually live in a constantly struggle, and we don't realize we're living in a battlefield anymore. So we're accepting our struggling situation. We're accepting our wrestling, the battle zone, as normal. We normalize the situation, even though when it's not normal, but we're accepting it, and we think it's okay. And I'm not picking on anybody, okay? When I prepare this sermon, whatever in my mind, I write it down. Struggling, maybe you're struggling with electronic games, social media, spending 6 hours plus a day, and you think it's okay. That's fine, no problem. Maybe somebody who's struggling buying stuff that you may not even need, and you don't even remember what you have. Sometimes we're paralyzed, and we cannot feel that we're in the battle zone anymore. So go back to, we need to recognize that there is a battle, and we need to wrestle, need to fight, and need to win it. The word battle that I'm using in here, again, is not referring to two countries that fighting, like mentioned as Russia and Ukraine, but it's also our life, peaceful in our life. We constantly struggle with something. And if we don't realize that there is a battle in our life, we won't see the need to fight, to wrestle. And if you don't fight, you don't wrestle, how can you win? And if you don't fight, you don't win, there can be no peace, but only chaos in your life. I remember in 2001, most of you are young and wasn't born yet, September 11 terrorist attack. Some of us, older, may remember, or some of you maybe know it from reading the history. Maybe you remember. So I remember that September 11, I think it was a Monday, and I was staying home, and my wife went to work, and Katie, my daughter, was 7 months old. The reason I stayed home because we're switching babysitter, so I have to stay home and get used to the new situations. And at 9:30, my wife came home. So I asked her a question, why are you home? It's 9:30 in the morning. She said, did you know what's going on right now in our country? So I turned on the TV. So my wife was the first one that told me about September 11. And if you read every single report about September 11, you come to realize that that was the biggest attack on our land. Over 3,000 people were dead. And this terrorist attack happened in our nation when the United States thought that the nation, our country, was living in peace, not living in a war town. So our nation was not ready to fight, was not ready to deal with the enemy. So after the terrorist attack occurred, Americans had to accept that our nation was at war with some countryless people, the fanatic or the extreme like Al-Qaeda, who has used illegal violence and intimidations, especially against civilians in pursuit of political goals or political agenda. And in October 2001, just a month after the terrorist attack, the United States established the Homeland Security Department to centralize all possible sources of information that might pose a threat to the nation. And at the same time, the U.S. government has also issued a plan to prevent other terrorist attacks from reoccurring. For example, today, if you travel in an airline, every single one of us have to go through the security as an example. We each may also thinking that we are living in peace, and therefore not willing to wrestle. When attacked, when in trouble, we don't know what to do, and we ask a question, why this happened and why that happened? We forget, and we do not accept that while we are still living on earth, there is tribulation, struggles, which means we are in a battlefield. Jesus himself told us in advance, you will have tribulation in the world, as is written in book of John, chapter 16, verse 33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. So remember and accept that while you and I living on this earth, there will be tribulation, will be struggle, it will be in a battlefield. When we live in struggling, in a battle, in a tribulation, we live in a battlefield. But if we refuse to accept, and to fight, to wrestle, to win the battle, there is no peace. With war, there is no peace. There's no peace in life until one would be willing to wrestle and to win. So when in the battle, there's two options. The option number one is to fight, wrestle, to bring in the peace. And number two, if you don't fight, not willing to wrestle, then you would be following the enemy's path and be slave or be subject to the enemy. The enemy I'm referring here is like a thief, right? A thief refers to a devil's scheme, as written in the book of John. It's one of my favorite books of chapter 10, verse 10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and to destroy. But this is Jesus Christ said, I come that they may have life. You and I may have life and have it abundantly. Living in this world means you're living in a battlefield. One is either to fight the battle, wrestle with it, and win it, or two is to have to follow the plans of the enemy, which is the thief. It's one or two choice. In Matthew chapter 12 and verse 20, it said, whoever is not with me is against me. This is Jesus said, whoever is not with me is against me. Whoever does not unite with me will melt away. So you either with Jesus and fight the battle, or you're not. Anything that does not come from God come from the devil. Just basic one or two. Good or bad, bad or evil. When you don't see it, many times we get beaten up by the enemy. We don't even know it. We don't even know who's beating us up. Being beat up to the point that it's so confused that we couldn't even recognize who was, beating us up. So accept that you're still living in this world, and there will be hardships. So you have to fight and win the battle. Otherwise, you're confused. I can imagine many times in a family or in a church environment, we have disagreement and we think that person bring it to me, bring me hardship. No, it's not the person. As we read further, the second point, hopefully we'll see, it's not you and I. Okay. So number one is I want you to accept that is a battle and you need to wrestle. You need to fight, to win, to bring in the peace. Number two, you need to wrestle and to win the battle. So Christian must be determined to fight, to wrestle and win the battle, to bring in peace into our life. If you don't fight, how can you win? And to win, you need to have three things. Remember, three things. Number one, making the decision. Picking side with God or not with God. Another word is picking the right leader who is a capable, the commander who has experience in victory. Number 2 is you need to know who your enemy is. And number 3, you need to have weapons. It's a battle. You go to the battle. If you don't have a leader, you don't pick a leader, you don't pick side, then probably not good. And if you don't know who your enemy, you might be fighting the wrong person. Fight your own self. Fight your people on your side. And you need to have weapons. So let's talk about making a decision. Who will we choose as our leader in a battle when we fight? I hope that each one of us will choose Jesus as our leader because simply, he said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus not only warned Christian, you and I, in advance that in the world there will be trouble, but he also told us to decide to pick him because he has already overcome the world. And only Jesus is the ultimate leader, the only commander that we must and we should, not even should, we must choose because he's not only know in advance what will happen and warn us, but he has also fought the battle and won the battle. So I hope you decide and choose Jesus as the commander, as your leader in the battlefield for each one of us while we're going through in this world. As in verse 10 that I use in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10, it said, finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. This verse reminds us to be bold in Christ, to be boldly choose Jesus as commander, as our leader, because of his omnipotence. And omnipotence means that he has no one can compare to him. And he has the all power to decide and to do and will be successful everything and anything that he decides. Unlimited power. Choosing him is the right choice and will ensure victory in the battle. Not only to save you to have a salvation, eternal life, but also overcome when trouble come, and it would come since we are living in this world. Trouble will come. So do you choose Jesus as your commander, as your leader? And usually many of us will say, yes, of course. So if you already choose Jesus as a leader, as a commander, then the next question is, why I'm still struggling? I'm still facing many issues in my life. Why I choose him? The answer hopefully is simple. Simply because even though we choose and we pick a leader, pick Jesus, but do we really, really sincerely follow his command, his instruction? When God said one thing and you do something else, and you expect God to follow you instead of you following his command. Yesterday I was driving to a event in Stockton. So I got a couple of hours in the car, and a person was calling, and I was talking to her. She wasn't doing well. She had a headache. She's taking medication, headache every 2 hours, and it's not going away. So I continued talking to her after a few minutes. Do you know why she have a headache? She didn't go to sleep. She didn't sleep, or she went to sleep like 4 o'clock in the morning. If you don't go to sleep, so I told her, if you don't, the sleep probably is not any, eventually it might be sickness. But right now, the sickness is coming from you're not sleeping. If you don't sleep, usually you will have some headache. And it doesn't matter what medication that you take, but you will have a headache, right? So God already told you and gave you instruction, take good care of yourself. You don't, you fail not taking good care of yourself, and then you expect God to heal you. I can tell you it's not going to happen. You follow your own will. When God told you, to do something, and you do opposite and expect God to taking care of you. Remember, God is God. And sometimes and many times we don't realize that we want us to be God's God, tell us God what to do. That ain't going to happen. So if God tells you to do something or stop saying anything, stop. If God tells you to do something and it's already inside of you, then follow it. Follow God, right? God said, seek me first, the kingdom of God, and everything else shall be added unto you. Are you really seeking God first? Or are you seeking yourself first and then ask God why it's not happening? The answer already said, God is God. The small story is the captain and a soldier, two of them, went into the battlefield. They on kind of get lost from their platoon, so two of them left. And they ran into the whole bunch of enemy. So the captain told the soldier, don't shoot, just lie low. Let me try to hide. But the soldier said, wow, they're so close. I can shoot them. Disobey the captain and start shooting the enemy. And guess what? His location was discovered. And they was captured. And they were asked, God, why didn't you help me? He gave you instruction. Don't shoot. Try to hide. Let them pass. But no, I have to shoot. That's a story in... the second thing before I tell you the story. So there is a battle when you live in this world. Accept the fact so that you can start wrestling, struggle, so that you can win and bring in the peace into your family, into yourself. And to win the battle, you need to pick side. Hopefully, you must pick Jesus on your side. Number 2 is you know your enemy. If you don't know your enemy, then sometimes it's bad. You probably fight the wrong battle and the wrong person. So I take this story from a story of David on a book of 2 Samuel chapter 10. I just read you 4 verses and I will tell you the story. In the course of time, this is against 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 1 to 4. In the course of time, the king Ammonite died, and his son Hanun succeeded him as a king. David thought, I will show kindness to Hanun, son of Nahash, just as his father showed kindness to me. So David sent delegations to express his sympathy to Hanun concerning his father. When David's men came to the land of Ammonite, the Ammonite commander said to Hanun, their lord, do you think David is honoring your father by sending envoys to you express sympathy? Hasn't David sent them to you only to explore the city and spy it out of and overthrow it? So Hanun seized David's envoy, shaved off half of each man's bare beards, and cut off their garments as tucks, and sent them away. Need to know your enemy. Hanun is a king of Ammon, just ascended into the throne, not seeing, not knowing, and recognizing his enemy, taking a good deed from King David and turn it into a disaster by cutting off the King David's messengers, beards, and pants. When King David was simply wanting to express the condolences in the loss of his father and show him kindness and respect. And because King Hanun did not recognize who his enemy was, he fought the wrong enemy. And if you read the whole story, then instead of receiving the kindness from King David that sent condolences and kindness and concern and sympathy to the Ammon's king, it turned into disaster. The end of the subject, Ammonite become a subject to Israelite, basically a slave. It's bad if you don't recognize your enemy. On verse 12, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. It's a lot to unpack, just as one verse. We do not wrestle against the blood and flesh, representing what we see with our own eyes. When somebody is standing in front of you, even though if the person making you upset, it may not be your enemy. Okay? The Christian life is a spiritual battle which ultimately opposite of the gospel stems from the evil spirit power. Those power can operate through humans, institutions, but they cannot be reduced solely to those manifestations, rulers. That means that we can see it our own eye. Force of evil. These various terms show diversity and comprehensive of enemy's power, reminding us that the battle cannot be fought merely with a human resource. Sometimes we struggle with even family, with the people next to us. Remember, they're not your enemy, right? The enemy is maybe working behind them, cause them to do or to getting you upset. I have a story. There's a husband and wife. On Saturday morning, the husband wanted to go to a prayer group, but the wife didn't want him to go because of whatever that they needed to do in the family. So the wife got the husband some kind of grieved. So the husband ran into the room and called his friend. He said, pray for me, pray for me. The devil is attacking me right now. And the wife heard that. The devil attacking, and surely she attacking him even more. But the point here is not really her. When you want to do something for God, for the church, there is a force trying to against you. It may be the devil worked through her mentality at that moment to cause them to get a fight. To overcome my difficulty in marriage, as I mentioned earlier in the message, I remember when my wife and I were struggling. We fighting 3 times during the week. Even though I was really kind of overcome it, yet I asked her, I said, let's go and just pray. Even though I'm very upset, and I'm sure she was upset too, let's go and pray. This is the battle. It's not between you and I. The battle is probably in the force that we cannot see, so just pray. Even though when I was very upset. So I pray. And as in Philip chapter 4, verse 6, it said, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, even when you are upset, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. In every situation, in everything, even when you're upset, and you really, truly Christian, right? Except that you're not fighting with the flesh and the blood, you fight with the spirit and pray. Anxiety, do not let any anxiety about anything, but in everything by prayer. Yes. Not because my wife is not here. I have the best marriage, I think. And I usually joke with my wife. I told her that, I have more than what I bargained for. So she gave me more than what I ever imagined that a wife would. Did we have problem? Yeah, we did. But sincerely, sometimes when we go to Costco to fill up the gas, we don't need 2 people to fill up the gas. We do just so that we can spend a few minutes together to fill up the gas. And at my age, I don't even have to eat. I just smell the food and I gain weight. Yeah, but sometime after the Bible study at 9 or 10 o'clock, we went in San Francisco. They have a donut place, and we went to the donut to buy 1 or 2 donuts, and sometimes we don't even finish the donut for like a whole week. but we find time to spend together. So I do have sincerely, the best marriage, and sure, I did have problem. So go back there is a battle, and you accept there's a battle, wrestling, and you fight, and you will win. And if you choose Jesus as the leader, and if you know your enemy, my wife is not an enemy, and you use, the third thing it will lead to is in a battle, and if you fight, you need weapon, right? You cannot go to the battle, and you don't have a weapon. So in verse 11 and 13, it said this, put on the whole army of God, that you may be able to stand against the scheme of the devil. Therefore take up the whole army of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. So the word that I want to bring into 2 verses here is that put on the whole armor of God. That's verse 11. And verse 13 say the same thing. Therefore, take up the whole army of God. So what is the army? The armor of God. Put on the whole armor of God. Right? The armor of God is love, joy, peace, forbearance, and gentleness and self-control. Do you apply your self-control? Those are the weapons that God told you. Do you really show kindness to one another? Kindness means that you're being nice to a person, whether that person is nice or not. So those are the armor of God. So kindness to one another, so self-control. And the person that you see with flesh and blood is not your enemy, it's a devil, right? That cause them to do things that they also need to wrestle to overcome them. So here are some samples of armor of God that we can practically, okay? Number 1, all of you kind of put an armor of God right now. You're attending church service, so reminding that you need the armor of God. You need His word. You pick His side. You're attending the Bible study classes on Friday. I know that some of you attended on last Friday or the Friday before. You have a self-control, right? You're doing certain things. If God tells you not to do it, then you're not going to do it. And you already know inside what is good to do and what is not good to do. Follow that the spirit that God already put inside of you. And do not be anxious about anything, but like I told you, and remember, but in everything by prayer and supplication, and give thanksgiving, and let your requests be made known to God. The evil spirit in heaven places in verse 12. What does that mean? It equivalent mean is a mysteriously thing that normal human, your eyes and my eye cannot see. And it's set in there, right? Evil spirit in heavenly places, meaning comparing to the spiritual world that you and I do not see, but accept there is. And you put on the armors of God so you can fight against that thing that human eyes cannot see. So in conclusion, accept that while you live on this earth, there will be hardship and troubles. When there is in a battle, when you're in a battle, it is necessary to fight and wrestle to bring in the peace and harmony for your life. To win the battle, you must pick a commander. You must decide to pick Jesus on your side. Number 2, you need to know your enemy. Don't fight the wrong enemy. And number 3, you need to have weapons. And the weapons, the armor of God, is His word. Attending Bible, attending church, reading the Bible, and know what is good and bad that God already put inside of you. And I hope that all of us will win the battle and live in a peaceful life. Imagine if I don't recognize it, I continue to fight with my wife. I wouldn't be married for 30 years. I wouldn't enjoy going and filling up the gas with my wife. I wouldn't enjoy, even though I know that the donut's not good for me, but go at 10 p.m. and buy a donut just because so we can spend a few minutes together. So I hope all of you will continue to wrestle, to fight, and if you pick a good leader, pick Jesus. If you know your enemy, and if you know the armor of God, the weapons, you will win the battle, and you will live in a peaceful life. And may the Lord bless all of you.